From the broadcast center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 2:30 p.m. Sportscast. I'm Kevin Pontius. Today is perhaps the second biggest day of the year for American football fans behind Super Bowl Sunday. Yes, today is Thanksgiving, and we have 3 games on the slate for this special American holiday. The Green Bay Packers managed to fend off the Detroit Lions 29-22 earlier today. The Washington Commanders are currently facing Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. To cap off the triple header later tonight, the San Francisco 49ers take on the Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field. The Seahawks have currently listed running back Kenneth Walker III as doubtful and quarterback Geno Smith as questionable. The 2023 Vanier Cup will be taking place this Saturday, November 25th. The UBC Thunderbirds will be taking on the Montreal Carabins. Thunderbirds quarterback Garrett Rooker made an incredible play with no time left in the game to send the Thunderbirds to the championship. Kickoff is on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Whitecaps FC Girls Elite Academy midfielder Geneva Hernandez-Gray has earned her first call-up to the Canadian women's national team. The team has multiple upcoming friendlies against Australia on December 1st in Langford and December 5th at BC Place. The December 5th match will mark the end of the legendary career of Christine Sinclair. Local sports merchandise stores could be increasing in popularity. Our reporter Nathan Maley explains.
Granville Sports, a sports merchandise store in downtown Vancouver, is a little surprised with how Canucks merchandise sales have gone so far this season, store manager Mike Jackson says.
Yeah, like I said, it's a little disappointing. We're playing so well, but the sales aren't really reflecting that much now.
The Canucks have started out hot, winning 13 of their first 20 games, which many believed would lead to an increase in tickets and merchandise being bought. Jackson says black skate uniforms are still popular sells, specifically Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes jerseys, but other players still lag behind. The store is optimistic, however, that sales will increase with Black Friday being tomorrow and Christmas soon on the way. Nathan Maley, 1680 The Crow.
In NHL news, there are no games taking place tonight as players across the league get the night off. But there is some injury news as Chicago Blackhawks forward Taylor Hall will undergo season-ending surgery sometime this week. Hall injured his right knee on November 9th versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. The 32-year-old has 2 goals and 2 assists in 10 games with the Hawks this season. Hall was brought in specifically to be on Connor Bedard's line to help encourage his development. To the hardwood now, the Toronto Raptors were back in action last night after an uninspired performance on Tuesday. The Raps took on Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers and were able to secure a 132-131 victory. Pascal Siakam led the squad with 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists. The team will now look to try and keep their in-season tournament hopes alive against the Chicago Bulls on Friday. Former Spur Kawhi Leonard was back in San Antonio as a member of the LA Clippers last night. The superstar forward left the team back in 2018 after disputes to whether or not he was healthy enough to play or not. Leonard was met with boos by the fan base, which led to Spurs head coach Greg Popovich grabbing the in-arena microphone mid-game.
Excuse me for a second.
Pops on the mic.
Stop all the booing and let these guys play. It's got no class. It's not who we are. Knock off the booing.
Pop telling the fans to lay off Kawhi Leonard.
The mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, has just announced that the transportation system will not be ready for the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. With less than a year before the event kicks off, the transport infrastructure in Paris is already under a lot of pressure. France has also announced that it is planning to contribute 15,000 soldiers to the massive security operation for this event. General Christophe Abad says the majority of the force will be deployed in the Paris region. The remaining forces will be deployed 15,000 kilometers away in Tahiti to safeguard the venue for Olympic surfing. Now time for weather. It is currently 5 degrees and sunny without a cloud in the sky in Burnaby. For those looking to go golfing, there may be some frost delays as the temperatures dropped to nearly 0 last night. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening. I'm Kevin Pontius for 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
We respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations.
Ready, on your toes.
Oh, what a save!
All right.
Growing up, like native tournaments was like a big thing for my parents, and they're the ones that showed me how to play soccer.
As much as Penelope Sparrow is on track to reaching new levels of professional soccer, she does not forget where it all came from.
And they'd bring me around until it got to a point where I was 4 years old, and we put on a pair of cleats and started playing. And I'd be there right by their side, learning with them. And that's kind of where I started. And it just kept going on. I got put in a couple leagues growing up, and I just grew to love it. I was about 13, and that's when I knew I truly loved the sport. Like, it was more than just kicking the ball, like you said. It was more of like a family, us together.
So to welcome you to our territory, which is known as UBC, which is known as Vancouver.
For Thompson Nelson, it's important for him to reflect on his roots while mentoring the next generation of Indigenous athletes.
It was just built into our family. And so from the time I could walk, my dad was throwing a soccer ball at me and just go out and have fun. And he was a traveling kind of traditional artist, merchant salesman, so we'd go to all the soccer tournaments across Vancouver Island, as well as over here on the mainland in the Indigenous circuit. So I just grew up around watching it, playing it, and just watching every aspect of it. And so I really fell in love with it, and every morning I'd go and just watch with him.
Both Thompson and Penelope are currently working with Hope and Health, coaching the younger generation at the UBC Thunderbird Stadium.
Hope and Health is a sport for social impact organization that works specifically with Indigenous children and youth and their communities to develop life and leadership skills. It's about creating a program that's accessible within Indigenous communities. As a result of colonization, programs haven't been accessible, nor have they been created that are culturally safe for Indigenous children and youth. So we wanted to close that gap. We really have been working on creating the pathway from those young, talented athletes that aspire to go pro or play to an elite level as high as they can go. When we had the opportunity to consider to take ownership over the League One BC Varsity FC team, it just made total sense that that would allow us to create that piece, which is the semi-professional, high-performance level. So then we can work with our communities as young as 3, 5 as little champions, all the way through their journey to Natsama FC.
Varsity FC was run by UBC Athletics, but Hope and Health purchased the rights and has rebranded as Natsama FC. Perhaps due to a lack of representation, many Indigenous athletes struggle on their journeys, often giving up.
So we're on the Musqueam field, where I grew up to love soccer. I always feel safe here, comfortable. I know when I've had a long day or a hard day, I try to do other things like art, track, all the other sports, but soccer was always something that I couldn't live without. When they think of soccer, they don't think of us, and obviously that's very hard because growing up, that was my FIFA. Going to tournaments, watching it, it was my FIFA. Like, that was my World Cups. Watching them play, it was like other players I couldn't see in TV. And the kind of passion and like support we have, it should be noticed. You don't see any native players, obviously. And it was just a battle. It's just like, am I trying, like, am I doing enough? Am I gonna achieve anything? Like, I didn't see anybody like me. So it was obviously really tough. It's just like, am I there for nothing? Am I doing this all for nothing? Like, there's nobody, I had nobody to like look up to.
One significant kind of moment for me was in high school. I was about 14, and I wasn't, like I said, I was a late bloomer. I was a bit out of shape, I guess, plumper than some of the other boys, and we had these fitness tests to introduce us into the high performance leagues, like for example, like Natsama and like UVic, Union Upton University. And I failed this fitness test. I guess not failed, but I just didn't do well. So that was really significant for me because I was bullied for that, and it felt pretty bad. So then I did that for a year, and then I came back the next year and nobody recognized me. I slimmed out, I got better. People thought I was an exchange student until I said my name. And then I came back and did that same fitness test, and I was in the top 2. I got like level 12 or something. But I think one of the lowest points, it's not a low point, but something you just kind of live with was, like I said, my dad passed away when I was 7. And he was one of my biggest role models. And I'm thankful for my uncle taking over and like raising me as one of his own too. But like not having that male figure to really be like, good job, son, or like, you know, like, saying like, good job, son, or like everybody had their dads there. And me, after I finished a game, I'd just look into the stands, and sometimes I'd have family, sometimes I wouldn't, and then it'd be like kind of like a little, you sit in the change room, you give yourself like a little self vibe, or like, and sometimes it's just nice to have that outer, I don't know, just a little nudge like, hey, you're doing well, just you're on the right path kind of thing. Because sometimes you just don't know, you get lost along the way, and sometimes you need that little push. But I'm grateful for everybody in my life and who have brought me and raised me to bring me to this opportunity. But in essence of barriers, like there definitely is barriers out there. And it can be a struggle, but you just gotta be proud, like don't fall into negativity. Like if somebody has something bad to say about you, just brush it off and just keep moving forward in a positive way. Because as an Indigenous youth, like we're representing our community, not just ourselves. Like it takes a village to raise a child. Like for me as an example, I had uncles, aunties, coaches, a plethora of people that like help support me. And it really shows like growth and development. And you're just there to represent your people to the best of your abilities and just make whoever proud and yourself proud, more importantly, and then just walk in a good way.
I was sitting in bed, not doing nothing, and then I got the call from Jesse. I was just amazed. It felt like my dreams were coming true. My journey was it felt like it was just a fresh start. Like, I was excited. I couldn't even think. I was speechless. When I was talking to him, I didn't even know what I said. I blacked out. Like, it was just, I was like, oh my God. Like, I already know what this is gonna bring, and I'm so excited. Like, I can't even express the emotions.
And when I found out, I was like, okay, this is something cool. This is a big step. Like, let's just go and take the plunge, see what happens. So I came here, and the group was very welcoming, and it was just nice to be in just such a high level. And right away, you could notice the jump. It was faster, people were smarter, the play was just intense. But I loved every minute of it, and I loved seeing if I can rise to the challenge. Oh, what a finish, all right. And when I got that call to come back for more tryouts, and then that final assessment that I made the squad, it was over the moon. I didn't really know how to like react. I was on the ferry trying not to like laugh out loud. I had this like big smirk because I was sitting next to people I didn't know, and I was like, I had to go outside and just like take a breath of fresh air. But it was just awesome, just because just for a moment of like, that's it. This is a big moment just to like prove Indigenous players have capabilities and opportunities to show talent, because there's a lot that fall through the cracks that just don't get that opportunity. And sometimes all you just need is that one, or even that one person that believes in you. And I'm hoping this platform of Natsuma, and even me just being here, will show other Indigenous youth and other players that you can do it. You just dedication, hard work, and lots of just faith, and just reaching out to like putting yourself out there, and not being afraid of like the racial barriers or like people doubting you that you can't do it.
For sure. Nice dribbling. Almost. We have a wide. We've been hidden for a long time, overlooked. We don't really get noticed like this, and such an opportunity like this, I can't hold back, express how I play, show how I play. Like, playing with like First Nations, it's a different game.
To date, Notsamont FC has signed 11 Indigenous players across the men's and women's teams, including 5 Indigenous assistant coaches. Your inaugural season begins April 29th at Swangard Stadium.
One, two, three.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, you're listening to 1680 The Crow. I'm Caitlin O, and here is your 3 p.m. news. Surrey RCMP are warning the public as a high-risk sex offender has been released into the community. 61-year-old Brian Abrosimo was released from the prison today, and police say he poses a high risk to re-offend. He finished an 18-year prison sentence for offenses including sexual assault, kidnapping, assault with a weapon, and forcible confinement. Surrey police say he is subject to a number of conditions following his long-term supervision order. One of the conditions is that he must reside at a community correctional center or a community residential facility approved by Canada Correctional Services. Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke says his release is outrageous and reprehensible, and that it is an example of what is wrong with our justice system. The first phase of TransLink's Access for Everyone plan was approved this morning. TransLink's Mayor Council met for their monthly council meeting where they agreed on a plan for the new expanded transit service. The plan is set to implement new rapid bus transit routes and added bus services. The Mayor's Council is asking the Canadian government for funding for new routes from Park Royal to Metrotown, Langley to Maple Ridge, and Surrey to White Rock. According to TransLink, the Access for Everyone plan requires a $21 billion investment over the next decade. Members of the Vancouver-based C4th Highlanders Regiment will be taking part in training this weekend. Vancouver residents are advised not to be concerned if they see armed military or hear gunfire around the former Molson Coors Brewery in West Vancouver. The exercise is scheduled to start at 8 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday and wrap up by 6 p.m. Captain Graham Kane with the 39th Canadian Brigade Group says no live ammunition will be used in the training. He says the exercise will help with the reserve unit plan to prepare and execute any further operations in urban environments. According to people who are part of the kimchi business, it is a growing quite popular. Our reporter Sean Park talked to one of the managers at a Korean grocery store about why this might be the case.
Asi Market is a Korean grocery store in Burnaby. Lupina Yom is one of the managers. She says their smaller sized kimchis are more popular with foreigners, while the larger 4-liter ones are more popular with Koreans. Either way, she says that it is very popular, and when it comes to the 1-liter ones, they sell around 20 a day.
I think because it's fresh, even if you make a lot of kimchi because it sells so well, there isn't any time for it to ferment, so it's always fresh. That's why Koreans or foreigners tend to prefer fresh ones over fermented ones.
The manager also says that regardless of where people are from, the reason why their own kimchi might be popular has more to do with its quality management. Sean Park, 1680, The Crow.
And local sports merchandise stores could soon be a hotspot in Vancouver. Our reporter Nathan Maley explains.
Granville Sports, a sports merchandise store in downtown Vancouver, is a little surprised with how Canucks merchandise sales have gone so far this season. Store manager Mike Jackson says.
Yeah, like I said, it's a little disappointing. We're playing so well, but the sales aren't really reflecting that much now.
The Canucks have started out hot, winning 13 of their first 20 games, which many believed would lead to an increase in tickets and merchandise being bought. Jackson says black skate uniforms are still popular sells, specifically Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes jerseys, but other players still lag behind. The store is optimistic, however, that sales will increase with Black Friday being tomorrow and Christmas soon on the way. Nathan Maley, 1680, The Crow.
Nathan joins us live in studio now. So Nathan, why do they believe sales are down?
They didn't give me a specific reason. They were really just surprised that they were. If I were to take a guess, it'd probably just be everyone's financial situation right now. Not a lot of people have the money to spend on a new jersey or other merchandise right now. That'd be my guess, yeah.
And what sales have been good for them so far?
Well, Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson jerseys are still very popular, they told me. Those are the two most marketable players on the team right now. And they did also tell me that their Black Skate, the third uniform, those are also still really hot sellers.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Yeah. Indigenous students can sometimes face racism in classrooms, our reporter Kobe Smith explains.
Some Indigenous students in classrooms sometimes can face racism or feel uncomfortable. Shelby Woida, the Vice President of Equity and Sustainability, explains what she heard stories from students.
So originally, when I kind of started here, I had heard stories from some of my Indigenous peers on their personal experiences in the classrooms. And a lot of them had experienced racism, directly from their instructors, and not just peers, as you would think.
After hearing the stories, Shelby wanted to decolonize the classrooms at BCIT to make Indigenous students feel more comfortable in the classrooms. Kobe Smith, 1680, The Crow.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says Melachita brand cantaloupes are likely causing a salmonella outbreak across 5 provinces. As of today, there are 26 confirmed cases of salmonella in BC, Ontario, Quebec, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador. So far, 6 people have been hospitalized. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency issued food recalls earlier this month, including whole and pre-cut cantaloupes. The health agency says if people aren't sure what brand of cantaloupe they have, they should throw it out. And in international news, protests broke out in Dublin after 3 young children and a woman were injured in the city centre due to a suspected stabbing attack. A 5-year-old girl is receiving emergency medical treatment at a Dublin hospital as a result of the attack. The incident took place outside a school, and 1 person of interest was also injured. Protesters fired flares and fireworks at the police cordon around the scene of the incident. Drew Harris, the commissioner of the National Police Services, commented on the protesters.
We have a complete lunatic hooligan faction driven by far-right ideology, and also then this disruptive tendency here, and engaged then in serious violence.
Numerous police vehicles and a tram were damaged during the disorder. Qatar says a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war will begin tomorrow. Aid will be going into Gaza as soon as possible, and Qatar's foreign ministry spokesman Mahed Al-Ansari told reporters in Doha that negotiators are in constant communication.
The need for us all to work together to make sure that this conflict is contained, and that we work together also to walk back from the 7th of October into a return to peace in the region. And therefore, we work with everybody, including the Iranians, to make sure that these messages get across.
The first group of hostages, including 13 women and children held by Hamas, will be freed tomorrow. The World Health Organization is asking China for more information about an increase in respiratory illnesses. M. Yen from ABC News has the story.
Following recent reports by non-state media saying pediatric hospitals in parts of China are overwhelmed with sick children, the WHO officially requested details on the issue. The agency said they need more information on the, quote, clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children. This comes after Chinese authorities confirmed there has been an increase in incidence of respiratory disease, attributing this spike to the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. China's Health Commission said it has been paying close attention to the worrisome trend. M. Win, ABC News, Washington.
The French military will be contributing 15,000 soldiers for next year's Paris Olympics as part of a massive security operation. The majority of the military force, nearly 10,000 troops, will be deployed in Paris. General Christophe Abad, the military governor of Paris, says forces will also be stationed for the games as far as 15,000 kilometers away in Tahiti. Navy vessels will safeguard the venue there for Olympic surfing. The operation is planned for July 26th to August 11th next year, and new legislation has also allowed the temporary use of cameras and AI technology to scan for security problems. And on to sports news. McMath Secondary girls volleyball team swept All-Stars and MVP titles in addition to a gold medal. Their champion streak continues after the team took home gold at Tuesday night's South Fraser Zone Championships. The team will be competing at the Provincial Championships games this weekend. The Whitecaps FC girls midfielder Geneva Hernandez-Gray earns the first call-up to Canada women's national team. The 17-year-old from Coquitlam has been with the Whitecaps since she was 13. She has earned her first call-up to the national team for the upcoming games against Australia on December 1st in Langford and at BC Place on December 5th. Hernandez-Gray was recently named the 2023 Whitecaps FC Female Most Promising Player and was part of the Girls Elite Academy historic season, where the team got 5 different trophies. The Vancouver Canucks will be playing against the Seattle Kraken tomorrow night. The Seattle Kraken will host the Vancouver Canucks after Eli Tolvavin's 2-goal game against San Jose Sharks in the Kraken's 7-1 win. Vancouver has a 13-6-1 record overall and a 5-2-0 record in Pacific Division play. And the Blackhawks forward Taylor Hall is expected to miss the rest of the season due to a right knee injury. Hall will have knee surgery, which will likely sideline him for the remainder of the season's games. His knee injury happened when he was hit by Tampa Bay's Michael Ezzamalt on November 9th. The 32-year-old was selected by Edmonton with the number 1 overall pick in the 2010 NHL draft. And the UBC Thunderbirds will face the Montreal Carabins at Queen's University's Richardson Stadium this Saturday for the Vanier Cup. Both teams earned their spot in the U Sports Men Football National Championship game after wins this past weekend. This will be the 58th edition of the Vanier Cup, and the game is set to begin at 1 p.m. And in the U.S., today is a big day for American football. In the light of it being Thanksgiving, there are 3 games played for the holiday. The Green Bay Packers won against the Detroit Lions 29-22 earlier today, and Washington Commanders faced off with the Dallas Cowboys earlier in the afternoon. The San Francisco 49ers are to take on Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field later tonight. And now for the weather, it's 9 degrees and sunny in Burnaby right now. Tonight, temperatures will drop to 1 degrees overnight, and tomorrow and Saturday will be sunny with a high of 8 degrees. That was your 3 p.m. news. I'm Caitlin No, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trettanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Hello and welcome to For the Record. I'm Kobe Smith, and on today's episode we'll be talking about decolonizing the classrooms at BCIT. Our guest is Shelby Woida, a third-year student in accounting, and is also the Vice President of Equity and Sustainability with BCIT Student Association. Why do you want to decolonize the classrooms here at BCIT?
So originally, when I kind of started here, I had heard stories from some of my Indigenous peers on their personal experiences in the classrooms, and a lot of them had experienced racism, directly from their instructors, and not just peers as you would think. And then I know some had felt like they were always being asked questions or called out for being the only Indigenous student in the classroom, instead of just recognized as just a regular student. So that kind of brought the idea to me, and then I started noticing words and context in textbooks that are outdated, culturally insensitive, and when I would kind of point these out, it was always met with that there aren't any concerns, nobody could see anything wrong or didn't understand what the issue was. Which didn't resonate very well with me. So then in researching more about what colonialism is, I kind of realizing that it's very much more present around BCIT. For example, in trades buildings, they have full male bathrooms, but they only have one single stall for females, which is also the only accessible bathroom. Which demonstrates how, when things were colonized, they were from, the white man's perspective, and a lot of that still isn't really changing. So I'm also kind of, seeing how it's in all our systemic processes. So, sexism and just, racism that we're experiencing today, the pay gap between males and females, and you see that there's a pay gap between white people and Indigenous people. So I'm hoping that going over this and showing faculty how this is happening, that they can start to change it. And it also comes up like in the way that they teach, like what their learning objectives are, how they evaluate students, which comes from the requirements of BCIT, which is made from all these like systemic issues. And they can't like recognize that there are different learning styles and students have different capabilities. And here at BCIT, it's very one way. This is how we do it. If you can't do it this way, too bad. You're not going to succeed. But in real life, it's not like that. And I just don't really feel like a lot of people are given the opportunity, and there's also like not a lot of representation as there should be. So yeah, I guess that's why I would like to decolonize classrooms.
So what is the purpose of decolonize the classrooms?
I guess the purpose is for like instructors, program heads, associate deans, even like BCIT faculty, hire BCIT staff that control, make decisions, to realize that this exists and like how it came to be, and then what they can do to try and change it. Like even just making like little changes or understanding or recognizing that like the textbooks are sometimes culturally insensitive, or examples that they use or stories that they tell. And it'd be great then if they can kind of see where the representation lacks, or why like we don't have certain students want to come here and how we can change that. Just create more opportunity.
So what are your plans to decolonize the classroom?
Okay, so right now my plan is to host a workshop and hopefully kind of implement this so that it continues on, and start the conversation around like how colonized our classrooms are. Like, hey, did you know that this is because of this? Did you know that this is an issue? Are you aware of this? And then hopefully kind of like presenting it in a way so that people can kind of really think about why things are how they are and like reflect on it, and then kind of see how they can change. And then I think like provide people with resources and education, understanding that, you know, they can go and ask questions, like they can go seek out Indigenous initiatives. There's a lot of like books out there. They can talk to other programs that have implemented indigenizing education. Yeah, I think just kind of like start the conversation is going to be the best place to start.
Is there workshops the faculty and students can attend, and when and where will the workshops be?
Yes, so currently we have one workshop planned for February 7th. It will be at 3 p.m. in Council Chambers in SE2. And this program is going to be specifically for faculty. And the idea of this one is specifically decolonizing education. So we're planning to present it in a way like, these could be some of your biases. Here are some stories from people who've experienced this in a classroom. You know, like what is representation, what is underrepresentation, and then how can we like change that? Like for teachers to understand that it's important for certain students to see themselves represented in the classroom and not in a negative way. For faculty to learn what is appropriate language, what isn't, and then things that they're saying that they shouldn't be saying, and then why, what like cultural norms are and how we can respect them. Yeah, and there will be like some activities around that. And then also like just the idea behind it is like creating a safe space for people to learn, ask questions, understanding that, you know, like not a lot of us know much about this, but here's the opportunity to learn and yeah, hopefully keep going. And then we're planning another sort of workshop, but less of a workshop, more of just like an educational learning experience, but more personal, that is going to be open to anybody, students, faculty, teachers, for like after spring break. And the details for that one are soon to come. But that one's going to be much more bigger, exciting, emotional. Yeah.
So why is it important for students and faculty to understand Indigenous history?
I think that the most important part is that we live in a country that was founded on genocide and the erasing of an entire population and culture, and it's something that our government has completely erased from our history. They've done so through the Indian Act. They've painted a picture of Indigenous people by the words that they had used, and changing that language is still a work in process. It's still not really happening. So it's really important for students to learn that so they can understand this land that we're on, who it belongs to, and then what happened in our history, and kind of understand that we have misconceptions because of that, and that we need to change them, we need to overcome them, we need to recognize what happened. Like I said, it's the truth before the reconciliation. And then a lot of students don't even know that truth and reconciliation is a thing. They have no idea. So it's just creating this awareness is, I think, the most important. And then sharing, understanding why, how this came to be, what happened. And then I think for faculty and students to learn, we can create a more a safer classroom, a more inclusive environment. More understanding different cultures, different languages. And then I think that will create a safer space for more Indigenous students to seek education, to come to BCIT, feel safer leaving their communities to come here. And then, I think just, making people more aware and more culturally sensitive.
All right, thank you. That's all the time we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening to For the Record. I'm Kobe Smith. Stay tuned for more episodes produced by our BCIT students on 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
from the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus. This is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 3:30 p.m. newscast. I'm Kevin Pontius. Mounties in Surrey are releasing a public warning as a high-risk sex offender is now living in the community. A 61-year-old Caucasian male named Brian Abrazimo was released from prison Thursday under strict conditions. Surrey RCMP says Abrazimo completed an 18-year prison sentence for multiple offenses. Mounties say he poses a risk to the safety of the community, especially to adolescents and young women. If you see armed soldiers, If you see armed soldiers or hear what sounds like gunshots in Vancouver this weekend, do not be alarmed. The Seaforth Military Base will be conducting military drills near the Old Molson Brewery on the south side of the Burrard Bridge. The exercise will help the reserve unit play, prepare, and execute future operations in complex urban environments. Major Brendan McLaughlin with the Seaforth Highlanders gave us more details on what the training will look like.
Having an environment that has lots of different sort of unexpected things that you may not be used to, like the sort of industrial warehousing environment that we have there, and then that flows into suddenly an office space. It's just more stuff for the soldiers to have to juggle and adapt to as they go through, which is really good training.
TransLink was able to approve the first phase of its Access for Everyone plan earlier today. The plan is to set up to speed up the current transit routes and add more bus services. The council said Metro Vancouver's transit services are essentially frozen at 2019 levels, even though the region's population has grown by nearly 200,000 people since 2019. According to TransLink, the Access for Everyone plan requires a $21 billion investment over the next decade. According to people who are part of the kimchi business, it is growing quite popular. Our reporter Sean Park talked to one of the managers at a Korean grocery store about why that might be the case.
Asi Market is a Korean grocery store in Burnaby. Lupina Yom is one of the managers. She says their smaller sized kimchis are more popular with foreigners, while the larger 4-liter ones are more popular with Koreans. Either way, she says that it is very popular, and when it comes to the 1-liter ones, they sell around 20 a day.
I think because it's fresh, even if you make a lot of kimchi because it sells so well, there isn't any time for it to ferment, so it's always fresh. That's why Koreans or foreigners tend to prefer fresh ones over fermented ones.
The manager also says that regardless of where people are from, the reason why their own kimchi might be popular has more to do with its quality management. Sean Park, 1680, The Crow.
For ski and snowboard lovers, today is opening day at Whistler Blackcomb Ski Resort. American Thanksgiving is usually the weekend the mountain opens, but if you're keen to get up there, it might be worth checking the snow report. So far, the resort is offering a limited amount of skiable terrain with a base of just 57 centimeters as of this morning. The mountain is using hundreds of snow guns to pump out as much man-made snow as possible. To international news now. The Israel-Palestine temporary ceasefire has finally begun. The ceasefire is set to take place Friday at 4 p.m. Tom Rivers of ABC has more.
It's taken a lot of negotiations to get to this point, but 13 Israeli hostages should be going home soon. Majid Al-Ansari, the spokesman for Qatar's foreign ministry in Doha, says there's
the need for us all to work together to make sure that this conflict is contained, and that we work together also to walk back from the 7th of October into a return to peace in the region.
But if eventually all hostages are released and Israel still is engaged in eliminating Hamas, regional containment may then be even harder to attain. Tom Rivers, ABC News, The Foreign Desk.
Irish police have arrested a man after a stabbing attack injured 3 children and 2 adults at a primary school in Dublin earlier this morning. Irish National Police spokesman Liam McGarity gave the update on the victims.
One girl aged 5 years has sustained serious injuries and is currently receiving emergency medical treatment in CHI Temple Street. One boy aged 5 years and a girl aged 6 years who received less serious injuries were brought to CHI Crumlin for treatment.
That's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank my local listeners for tuning in. I'm Kevin Pontius.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.